As you will learn in the course, the disaster cycle, mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery has long served as a foundational model of emergency management. While often presented as a linear phased approach to dealing with crises and disasters, real world events are more often challenging that classic four-stage model and fundamentally obligating us to think critically about its limitations in today's complex, dynamic, and politically charged world. Following the 2005 catastrophic hurricane and flooding surrounding Katrina in New Orleans and the Gulf Coast, I helped lead the team in FEMA that redesigned the existing planning paradigm and which resulted in the publication in 2008 of the National Response Framework. It was a Herculean, all-sector, multi-year effort that earned us a FEMA Administrator Award. It was quickly followed by other planning frameworks. Both preparedness and recovery were issued in 2011 and mitigation in 2013. So the four frameworks together serve as the doctrinal basis for how we operate today in the United States. And while each one focused on a discrete phase, there was never an intent to apply them in a straight line linear way. We presented them as a continuous cycle of risk management, but both pedagogy and bureaucracy took that circle and flattened it into a straight line. However, the world we operate in today is not so orderly and not so neat, because real world crises increasingly challenge us and challenge this tidy framework. First, disasters are nonlinear and overlapping. Consider a hurricane that occurs during a pandemic. The response to one will overlap with the preparedness phase of another. Climate change is a risk factor and a risk multiplier. It blurs the boundaries between phases as slow onset disasters like droughts morph into acute emergencies like wildland fires. Second, crises are often chronic rather than episodic. For many vulnerable communities, there's no clean break between recovery and mitigation because recovery is never truly achieved. The cycle presumes a return to normal, but in places repeatedly struck by disasters or having limited resources to respond to disasters, normal may be precarious, inequitable, and even dangerous. Third, and probably most critically, this classic cycle underestimates the political and social dimensions of disaster management. Political will, public expectations, funding cycles, media attention can all distort when and how each phase occurs. For example, mitigation may go underfunded because it's expensive and the benefits are long-term and invisible, while response gets all of the media attention and the political capital. Recovery often becomes politicized, favoring some communities over the other. Last year's response and recovery in North Carolina following Hurricane Helene, as well as the destructive wildfires that affected California and Los Angeles and San Diego counties, are poignant examples of how these external factors have to be factored in and dealt with in any crisis. So what's the alternative? Some experts are advocating for a more dynamic systems approach, one that emphasizes feedback loops and interdependencies and chronic stressors. Others argue for centering community resilience, social equity, and governance as core organizing principles rather than relying on fixed stages. Both have merit, and both could provide value added to the classic model. So in conclusion, while the four-stage cycle has value as a teaching tool and as an organizing tool, it no longer fully captures the complexity of the world we manage. As emergency managers, planners, and scholars, we must adapt our frameworks to match this messy reality that we live in the 21st century, where hazards are entangled, impacts are unequal, and politics are always in play.